Random advice. Try wearing a hat, dad cap, beanie, any kind of headgear, trucker hat, fitteds, snapbacks. Don't wear a fedora, nigga. Like stop trying to sell me Forex. Cover your bean, dog. Wear a hat. Before I start getting any points across, I think we all should establish what world building is first. For the sake of understanding the video, this can actually be solved in about 5 seconds. When you hear this, what comes to mind? Yeah, that's it. World building is amazing. That's the video right there. This has been another video by Nighttime made in. This video is not an in-depth dive into the complexities of world building coming from someone who has a masterclass on it that never actually wrote film or any kind of featured film, but simply an appreciation of the skill in various art forms. I love world building. Love world building. Personally, when getting into any form of media, especially anime, I'm always interested in the world built and where will the influence be drawn from. The possibilities are endless when it comes to constructing an alternate reality in your art form of media. This can take many forms. Some from anime that immediately comes to mind are Black Lagoon, One Piece, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Attack on Titan, and Code Geass. I just want to highlight that this video may be a bit different from the other videos that I've made thus far. This video will cover a bit of anime, will cover a bit of music, not really film, but I'll touch on that later on, and of course fashion. But I think I want to expand a little bit, not too much. I'm not gonna come on here and start talking about Joe Budden, but I also want to expand my interest, or not expand my interest, but just share my interest more. So there are lots of things that I'm interested in and things that fascinate me, and I want to speak on them more. Predominantly I will stay with fashion, but I want to be able to divert. Yeah, if you're fine with that, we'll see how it goes. Within world building and a little bit of the readings that I did in preparation for this video, the types of world building are divided into two major sections: real world fantasy and second world fantasy. Real world, as the name kind of suggests, draws in heavy inspiration from, guess, the real world, the physical and intangible aspects of the world we live in, with minor or major alterations. This can be changes to history, cultures, technological advancements, or military and governance. Some references I can draw from anime are Samurai Champloo and Jujutsu Kaisen. Second world fantasy is a creation of a completely new world. Many of the major elements in it were made up by the creator. This is Made in Abyss, One Piece, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and Attack on Titan. These in particular go beyond the average expectations of world building to develop new languages, alphabets, and geography. There can also be a combination of both categories, which gives you like a mixture of the real world and the second world, which is Black Lagoon and Code Geass. The jarring details highlighted, such as cities or communities, overall aesthetic, clothing, livelihoods, social issues, government, and day-to-day activities of someone that may be somewhat isolated from the central plot of the story, all play a fundamental role for me in understanding the world outside of the main characters and events taking place. An anime that does a really good job at this is One Piece. One Piece is really good at fleshing out a world, but they also do it too well, and then they get sidetracked and you end up watching like 45 episodes about an old woman with cancer that experienced racism from fishmen, and you don't really care about that. You just want to see Luffy fight niggas. With the assistance of music, a euphoric feeling is then developed when a soundtrack is associated with a place, event, or particular character in a show, and you can identify it even without the character or the place showing on screen yet. When you hear this, come now man, stop playing. This is magnificent. I'm not the biggest fan of movies, to be honest, so even though that particular feel of media is one of the best examples of world building, I'm not gonna comment much on it just because I do not have a lot to contribute. When referring to world building, the concept does not have to be restricted to the confines of its title, meaning that it does not necessarily have to be on a large scale, such as building an entire world, or control a state population. Certain musical artists have the capabilities of implementing world-building fundamentals into their rollout. The first video I saw that put some thoughts that I've already had into my head onto a YouTube video was Nathan Zed's video on the lost art of a rollout, where he talks about some of his favorite album rollouts and what makes an album rollout spectacular, absolutely diabolical to him. And within this, it kinda had me thinking about it even further into the aspects of world building. I kinda see rollout and world building as a similar entity. The best way I can describe it is a Venn diagram. Yeah, I went to school. Looking at the artist and world building, many elements must complement each other when creating this holistic and complete world or feeling of the album. Where the rollout stops at generating the perception and anticipation for the upcoming project, world building goes beyond that and transfers some of the feelings and images consumed through the rollout into music that accurately depicts the images, videos, and of course fashion. I see fashion as a big part, a thick part, double stuffed on a Thursday afternoon, part of the developmental stage in world building. You look at Astroworld, Sire, Whole Lotta Red, and almost every single album from The Weeknd, Tyler the Creator, and Kanye West. It almost feels as though they themselves have not fully figured out the world in which they have created, but while you continue on the journey with them, you discover parts of the world new to both of you and share similar techniques that you remember from previous projects. The video by Nathan Zed touched on some of those albums already, so I'll just leave a link in the description so you could definitely watch his videos, that one in particular. Alright, fun and games over, let me dial back a bit and talk about Whole Lotta Red by Playboi Carti. From the intense anticipation to the leading up images, snippets, leaks, the lookbooks created by Matthew Williams at Givenchy and Rick Owens, Carti successfully created a dystopian alternate reality for 6'1", 100-pound bi-curious blood-sucking demons and vampires. And then came the music. Lyrical content? Not there, not gonna lie. But the vibes, dog, impeccable. Seamless transitions, production-wise, and content complementing one another beautifully. And listen, I'm no music analyst. I don't have the fancy schmancy terminology, the needle drop kind of knowledge to break down the cohesiveness of this album. But it was really well done. Back to the Instagram post. If you go on his Instagram to this date, the very first images after Dial It, the album cover, began the Whole Lotta Red aesthetic. Fashion is usually one of the first indicators of changes before the person has a chance to open their mouth and share some of their views or even portray their new development. Some of the most subtle instances of growth can be spotted in the day-to-day way in which people wear their clothes. World building can be overly simplified to immaculate storytelling, and many designers have successfully illustrated world building capabilities with collections that tell a story and target a particular stance, whether that be political, social, or economical. How I see a lot of fashion shows, the good ones anyways, they already create this world that sucks the viewer into it, where the intricacies of the world may not be drawn out and clearly depicted because of the lack of dialogue and just overall words in a fashion show. The cohesiveness of the collection plays a role of an alternate universe, where some garments that are displayed will never, and quite literally never, be seen in the real world. You don't believe me? I'd bet. Rei Kawakubo, 1997, famous bump collection. The general consensus is this is a great experimental collection exploring more concepts with color that didn't play into her known Hiroshima chic aesthetic. With that being said, look at these silhouettes. I promise you, this is not a reflection of the world we live in, but more so a window into another unrealistic perspective, an alternate world. Because believe what you want, you're not seeing receptionists wearing silhouettes that have this on it. Like, just look at this. There's a whole glizzy, like somebody's meat is strapped to her hip. Even looking at Comme des Garçons recent collections in the past few years, and the intensity of the abstract garments and surrealism has not changed one bit. The aesthetic that has been crafted in the 80s and 90s are still being honed on today, continuing to visit different aspects of the world Kawakubo has created. Like or dislike the pieces because of how abstract it is, there's no debate that Comme des Garçons is a perfect example of world building in fashion. I feel like Gucci under Alessandro Michele did a great job at this while currently working at Gucci. From the first collection upon his entry, it was evident that a significant change in Gucci was a breast. A breast? Where did I even learn that word from? Is that the correct word I'm looking for right now? A breast. Anyways, regardless, I saw a video on this that really did a good job at highlighting what he did. I think it's from the Fashion Archive. If I find it, I'll put it in the description. This is a video I kind of wanted to look at. I'm not sure if I want to do it yet, but just looking at the aesthetic that Alessandro Michele built while he was at Gucci. Thebe Mugugu represents the real-world fantasy aspect of world building in fashion, using concepts and periods of history as influence towards his garments, but kind of telling a story, like a personal story about his journey and the things that he experienced and saw growing up in South Africa. This is another great video that I saw. If I remember which video it was, I will link it in the description as well. Hedi Slimane, despite what fashion house he's at, seems unbothered by the culture and aesthetic of the existing house, but brings his entire world aesthetic and drastically changes the brand, and most of the time, it works. Most of the times. Raf Simons often reflects his own life and the society in which he grew up in, and directs some of the issues he faced as an adolescent or young adult in the punk-heavy nightlife culture he came from. We could honestly go on and on and on and on about world building, but that would require way more reading than I intend to do. I like the concept of this video, and I may potentially do a second part to it, separating parts of world building that fascinates me and solely diving into those, like choosing music for a video, visuals for another, real world cultural influences, and so on. This has been another video by Nighttime, made in Trinidad and Tobago at night, because niggas be busy during the day playing League of Legends. Thank you for watching.